two, one, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm Mary Fran Johnson. I'll be your host today for this episode. Well, I'll be talking with Mike Santama, who is the Senior Vice President and CIO of Rent-A-Center, which is based near Dallas. I want to welcome in all of our viewers from LinkedIn and Twitter and YouTube, where we have the show streaming live right this minute. During the broadcast, I'll be pausing a few times to just reintroduce what we're doing. And in the meantime, wanted to remind everyone who's watching now to please feel free to send in your questions for Mike. We are monitoring all of our different live channels, and I'll be sure to pass your questions along to him. So let me start out by introducing Mike to you. He is an experienced technology leader with multi-industry expertise in designing and implementing cutting-edge, cost-effective IT. He also has an extensive background in information security and risk management, which these days is a pretty good set of skills to bring to the CIO table. Mike joined the Plano, Texas-based Rent-A-Center in 2017 as the VP of Information Security, Innovation Labs, and Corporate Solutions. And about 1 year ago this month, he was promoted to Chief Information Officer. RAC, as it's commonly known, Rent-A-Center is a furniture, electronics, and home goods rent-to-own industry leader with about 35% of the market in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. It has more than 2,200 brick-and-mortar stores across North America and with an additional 3,000 lease-to-own locations and about 300 franchisees. Prior to his work at Rent-A-Center, Mike developed and led the information security practice at a Dallas-based information services company called To The Edge, which specialized in innovation and experimentation as a services, partnering with businesses to deliver that. And before that role, he was the Executive Director of Technology Services for BDP International, and then before that, a Global Service Delivery Director at pharmacy giant AstraZeneca. Welcome here today, Mike. You've had a lot going on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's start out. I interview a lot of CIOs on this show, and usually most people are many, many years into their work as a CIO. So I'm going to take advantage of the fact that you're something of a newbie, and I want to talk about your first year as a CIO, the things that you've learned about the role, the kind of accomplishments you have under your belt. You did come into this from a big background in security, so you didn't decide to be a CIO when you were only 5 years old. So tell me about that first year.
Oh, well, I got to say it wasn't easy.
We didn't expect you to say it wasn't.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you think about all the roles and all the responsibility that comes with being a CIO.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I took a little bit of a step back from just the traditional sense of that and said, what does it really mean to be a CIO? And a legendary CIO talked to me at one point and said, you think about it being a chief information officer, but really it's a chief integration officer. And that individual couldn't have been more right. So I've really taken that to heart and said, well, how do we really start building relationships across the organization, become one with the business?
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what we've done in my first year is we've gone out, we've embedded ourselves in the business, become experts in their delivery and their success, and really have brought them into IT as well. That simply put, that collaboration where you have make IT the business of everyone. You've got
Mm-hmm.
a strong IT presence inside the business, and you've got strong business inside of IT because we're all in this together, right? And we want to make sure we're getting the customer journeys right. We want to make sure we're executing on our strategy the way we should, and really want to make sure the experiences are good as a whole, internally and externally. So, that's been the challenge and the wonderful accomplishment as far as I can say in the first year. And to be honest with you, I couldn't have done it without the strong executive leadership team that we have here at Rent-A-Center. I mean, such a collaborative group, so it's been wonderful to work with them as well. And we've done some really great things for the business. We've rolled out a very collaborative purchasing portal for our franchisees and our corporate stores in the first year as well. We've replaced multiple systems, simplified architectures. So we've done a lot more than just collaboration, but it's it's been a great ride so far.
Well, that's great. Well, and that's interesting too. I've heard others. The legendary Charlie Feld refers to CIO as Chief Integration Officer, and
That might be the guy.
It might be the guy. That's right. You are in Dallas, and so is Charlie. So, but the some CIOs consider the I to be innovation, and others see it as influence. There's so many great I words that you can use to explain what a CIO does. And I like the idea that when we talked earlier, you said we'd really embrace this integration school of thought. And a lot of times when technology people say integration, they're thinking about technologies integrating with the business, but you're really referring to it in a much broader sense.
Absolutely. I'm just a firm believer in making sure that we're all marching down the same plan and making sure that we are integrated as one cohesive unit, because that just reflects in the experiences that we provide to the customers, and they see it. If we're all disjointed, if we're not delivering on the customer journey the way we should be, it's going to reflect in all that we do at the customer level.
Right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about all that and some of the specifics about what you've been getting accomplished. But I wanted to just I wanted to float us up to the 30,000-foot view and talk a little bit about, you are in the heart of the retail industry in the business that Rent-A-Center's in, and there's so much disruption and challenge going on in that industry right now. Tell us about Rent-A-Center's business model and how it's been changing in recent years.
Sure. Maybe I should first start with what Rent-A-Center is, and also another exciting side of the business, our preferred lease side of the business, which is a store inside of a store type model. So at Rent-A-Center as our core offering, from inception, that's where we're renting goods to the underserved market, where we, where someone would rather have the flexibility to rent goods instead of buy them, or we're giving them the means because they don't have the credit to get those goods. So there's that model, and that model there is very interesting. It's all about the relationship with that customer. When I was very surprised to see when I walked into a Rent-A-Center store upon taking this role, and seeing Susie walking in the door and someone screaming from the back counter, "Hey Susie, how you doing? Are you here to pick up, this fireplace? Are you here? Are you just looking at that TV today?" We're really entrenched in what those customers' goals are for their products. We're really entrenched in who they are as a customer and the things they're going through in their own lives, because we all go through struggles. There might be a costly auto repair and they need a little help with payment plans and things like that nature. We're there to help and serve. So I'm so impressed by what our stores do in that regard. And honestly, they call themselves these customer relationship managers, and I love that about our stores. It's just so inspiring.
Yeah, so they're not called sales associates; they're relationship managers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think you probably heard a lot of this. I know you were at the big National Retail Federation conference not too long ago, and you probably heard a lot of businesses that talk about, in-store retail is dead, but you're not seeing that at Rent-A-Center.
No, the industry is saying just that. They're seeing those Amazon-like services coming into play, and they're being challenged in their own worlds. But for Rent-A-Center, in-store retail is definitely not dead. It's really, how do we tie it all together into that omni-channel experience that everyone is so hungry for? So you transact where you're comfortable, you're via mobile or on the web, and then that last mile component, we're delivering directly out of our stores. So it's a bit of a handshake model, and we're doing a really good job of delivering that experience and for our customers.
Well, in a time and a day and age when so many quote unquote relationships are online, it's actually a little bit heartening to think that there's still a very important face-to-face component. I know we see that at the CIO events that IDG runs, and the fact that CIOs like yourself, you do a lot of things online, but at some point you really still like to have that face-to-face conversation with someone. And building a relationship that way is so different from what you can do online.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I think about, where the disruption may be at Rent-A-Center is it's how do we maintain that intimate customer experience that we're so good at, in that omni-channel experience. And we've got some exciting things coming down the pike that are really going to enhance that. We're working very close with our friends in marketing and really driving what the customer experience really should be in that omni-channel experience. So I'm really excited about 2020 and what it holds for our customers.
That's great. That's great. Tell me about something that illustrates that omni-channel relationship and how it's changing, like the online aspects of what you do with customers. What changed on that front in your first year?
So it's to me it's been a lot about how we're seeing that shift, and how they're using our services. They're using them more as a way to get those goods in a more like a subscription type fashion, and trying to really tie all of that together. So the way they're browsing, the way they're interacting, the way they're chatting with our coworkers, and really driving that all together has been a big change for us, as opposed to just going in the store and just talking to our coworkers. It's been wonderful to see.
Well, and I liked one of the points you made about how Rent-A-Center, that the people that work there understand that life gets in the way and you're there to help where you can. I thought that was a really nice way to put it, because you don't necessarily expect to have people in a retail operation to be kind of mission-based that way. And that must give the company a different feel.
Absolutely. It's not about landing the sale. I mean, of course, we need to make sales in order to stay in business. Of course, that's retail's business as a whole. But Rent-A-Center really does care. They care about their consumers. They care about where they are in their stage of life. They want to make sure that they're able to get the quality goods that they need for their family. And it's a great mission, and it's very exciting to also tie those same principles and goals for our customers into the preferred lease model as well, which is that store inside of a store. So that's where we have coworkers inside of an Ashley Furniture, a Rooms To Go, one of those types of furniture stores, and we offer the same no credit options for those consumers as well. There's no reason, if you can't qualify for credit, you shouldn't be able to get the goods you need to make sure that your family is successful and you can provide for them.
Well, and one of the points you made when we were talking about the changing customer expectations of businesses like yours, but just about retail even in general, is how the customers tend to evolve your offering through the way that they use it. Explain that to me a little bit more.
Absolutely. So your traditional transaction is you go and you rent goods, and they and as you get through the end of the agreement, you either just hold on to them, or you can turn them back in, whatever suits you best. But we want folks to go to ownership, of course. But what we're seeing as they get to ownership, they want the latest and greatest.
They want to upgrade.
You think about the way we are with our iPhones, or at least the way I am with my iPhone. The new one comes out, I have to have it.
Oh, you're one of those people that goes and gets in the line at 5 a.m.
I'm not sure I'm getting in line. I'm definitely gonna have it shortly thereafter.
You're definitely interested. Yeah.
So so we're seeing those trends where customers are, going the term with their agreements, and then they're just coming back for the latest and greatest. They want the higher end technology now, which I think is pretty refreshing. If I was to summarize how we started at Rent-A-Center, it was about fulfilling a need. Now we're seeing us, becoming that partner of choice for, technology refreshes, and again, getting that latest and greatest technology, the QLEDs, OLEDs, all, the latest Xbox, the nicer furniture. You're basically putting out one low cost per week for biweekly, whatever, however you have your payment set up, and you're able to get those great technologies, as a service.
Well, the one of the things you mentioned too, that from a technology perspective, that you've been focused on introducing more flexibility throughout the business. Talk a little bit about that and what that means.
Yeah, that's something we've been pretty proud of over the past years. Traditionally, technology teams are the answer for delivering an experience and trying to figure out how we can deliver it as quick as humanly possible so that can get out to the market. Well, we flipped it on its head a little bit and said, how do we build business-driven development models? And what I mean by that is utilizing platforms or creating platforms that allow our business teams to alter the experience or enable a new experience just by configuration items, if you will. And the power how that's taken flight has been pretty incredible. We're doing chat options for our consumers now. We've enabled so many things that has just been incredible. I mean, we're one of the platforms we use pretty heavily internally, Salesforce. Everybody knows Salesforce. A lot of folks love Salesforce. But just the flexibility inside of a platform like Salesforce allows us to again put the power in the hands of the business and really enable them to develop great solutions for our consumers.
Okay. We have our first question from the audience, and it's actually from a fellow CIO, Richard Cope. Hello, Richard. He is a regular attendee at our live, and so we're glad to have the first question from you. Richard asks, with a security background, I imagine you're planning for security before you got into your chief innovation or integration role. How do you go about communicating that need for security to other parts of the business? And I know this is a subject near and dear to your heart, so hold forth on it.
It most definitely is. And answer in a couple different ways. Throughout the organization, we're always talking about security, so we're always making it top of mind. But at the crux of it all, we put security at the core of all the technologies that we have. And I won't go deeply into all the security controls we have because I wouldn't be a very good security professional if I told all of our secrets.
I've never run into a CIO that was willing to name names or talk about any of that in detail, but that's okay because we don't want to put a target on your back either.
But to making those controls and those protections, inherent to our systems, it just makes sense. It becomes just a part of what we do and who we are, and and folks can't, or organizations cannot really afford to build a lot of these in-house. So I guess my lesson here, or my advice, is also don't be afraid to partner with industry-leading security companies to really put things on the ground that are so expensive to build in nature. So like a security operations center, for instance.
Yeah.
You can subscribe to Security Operations Center services all day long and get great security talent through that model. Not saying you don't need talent inside of your four walls, because we have a very strong information security practice that I'm very proud of. But again, it's hard to build and scale technologies, security technologies, and big practices like that 24/7. Yeah. And frankly, I wouldn't. I'm going to continue to subscribe and continue to have a nice core group of folks that I'm going to enable through that model.
Right. Well, I would imagine that, well, and here I am imagining, because I don't know if this is the case, but the business people in Rent-A-Center, probably 5 years ago, you'd have to do a lot more explaining and cajoling about security practices, but I feel like everyone is so much more aware of it in their own personal lives as well as professional. So do you find that is it a pretty sophisticated group you're dealing with on the business side, where you don't have to sell them on the need for security, they're with you on it?
Oh no, they're very informed consumers, and they're hungry for it as well. But look what's at risk. it's our customers' data. It's our internal data. You know, we take that very seriously. You know, how we protect our consumers with everything that they trust us with is extremely important. It's a core competency that we have here at Rent-A-Center.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and we've mentioned your staff a few times, and I thought we ought to take a moment to talk about the size and scope of the folks that you have working for Rent-A-Center. Start with how many employees at the company, how many customers are being looked after, and then talk to us about the size of your IT group.
So, customer base, I'm not 100% sure what that number is at this point, but it's quite substantial.
Yeah.
You know, our internal customer base is 17,000 if you count all the retail locations.
Okay.
But as far as the size of the team, we are about just under 300 coworkers, and that's a strong mixture of strategic partners in the technology space and internal Rent-A-Center employees.
Okay.
And there's every discipline inside of that team. You know, you think about the importance of security that we just talked about. You know, we have very, very talented developers inside of this team. We have extremely talented DevOps practice. You know, the list can go on and on and on. And I love when folks ask me about, you know, what disciplines are inside of the team, because I really don't think there's a discipline we don't have, especially when it comes to the development side. The team is just so strong, and they are able to respond to any need that the business throws at them. And if we can't, we band together and we figure it out together. It's a very, very, very strong team that I'm very proud of. And I think the really incredible piece of it is when I got here, when I took this role, I only made a few small changes. You know, we've been growing this team for a number of years. I mean, I've only had a view into it since 2017, but you know, we went through a few resizing exercises. You know, between 2017 and when I took on this role, and I'm happy to say we've got the best of the best on the ground here. And you know, again, a few small tweaks to put them in positions of empowerment so they can help drive that collaboration with the business is really the changes I've made. And I again want to give them a huge shout out to just all that they've accomplished and the exciting things that they're working on for 2020.
Great. Well, and you made the point also that you try to convey to everyone that the technology team doesn't always have to be the answer, and that it's important to empower the rest of the organization to stay ahead of the competition, to be serving customers. Give me an example of a way that you kind of actualize something like that. Is there anything that's happened in the last year where you looked at doing it internally and then you thought, I mean, you mentioned security, of course, and getting services from a security operations center, but are there other places where the tech team was like, oh, we can do this, and you thought, you know, we can probably do it better with outside expertise?
Well, there's quite a few options where we leverage partners, but in that specific instance, you know, when we were talking, I was talking a lot about, you know, how we're empowering the business and that business development driven methodology.
Yes.
And very proud of the work that the team has done in collaboration with the marketing team this past year to rebuild our website.
Okay.
Well, I mean, this is a small but a large example. You know, you just think about the journey, you know, different online experiences go through and the maintenance associated with it. You can imagine how all that could build up into, you know, an environment where you have multiple touch points to change anything and everything on that website.
There's a lot of cascading things happen on websites.
Oh, well, absolutely. So many breakpoints and everything else that just soon forget about.
Right.
But at this point, you know, we worked deeply with the business to rebuild our website. You know, we're seeing great traffic growth going to the website now, and also a lot of the configuration is in the hands of the business now. So that was a huge win for us. It's no longer, you know, how do we get this enabled, you know, and have it be an IT function. You know, and we did that work with a partner as well. We have 3 strategic partners in here that are fairly large in size. We obviously have more relationships than that, but the main 3, one of the main 3 helped us with that, and it was tough. It was definitely tough.
Yeah.
A big project of that size, you can imagine
Hmm.
where it would be challenging across the entire organization to get it right. But I'm happy to say, through that partnership with our internal teams and our partners, we were able to get that done and actually deliver experience that is going to be very beneficial for the business going forward.
Hmm. Well, and I liked another point that you made when we were talking about the personalization and redesigning the digital experience, how it's important for CIOs not to forget about the internal consumers or customers as well as the
Oh yeah.
external. To me, that feels like a little newer. The last few years, it seems like all of the emphasis tended to be externally. And now when you hear talk about the workplace of the future and IT organizations and how much closer they're getting to the business, it seems to me that there's much more attention on that internal consumer of your services as much. And it sounds like the
Absolutely.
website is one place where they really see that difference.
For sure. And I'm rattling through my head of all the things that we flattened and simplified
Yeah.
over the past year to give our internal coworkers that better experience. And don't get me wrong, we have a lot more work to do. But it's a very simple thing that we talk about here from an IT perspective. It's a happy coworker is going to deliver a great experience, inside
Hmm.
your company, and it again translates to customers. So just to give them one place to log in for everything to do at the store level, that
Hmm.
to help simplify the way they search for product, all these things, they seem very small in nature,
Yeah.
but to that coworker who is standing in front of a customer who's trying to get an agreement done, who's trying to get the product associated with it, those are really big deals.
Well,
So we,
yeah, think about all the retail experiences we've had where you're trying to order something maybe in another size or maybe you want a different color, and the person trying to help you is having a frustrating computer experience. All of a sudden, you're both there together with that because everybody's had those sorts of issues.
oh, absolutely. And you know, if any of our coworkers are listening, we take that very seriously,
Call
and
me
we want
right away. Call Mike Santamaw. I will answer.
we want to make sure that that it is a great experience for them, and we want to make sure that it's transitioning into our customers.
Hmm.
And you heard earlier about how passionate we are around just knowing our customer and giving them a great service.
Yeah.
This is one more way to do that.
Hmm. Well, and if you are, let me take just a pause here. If you're just joining us, I am talking on CIO Leadership Live with Mike Santamaw, who is the Chief Information Officer and Senior VP of IT for Rent-A-Center based near Dallas. You're welcome to send your questions in to us. Mike is answering them live as we speak here. Let's talk next about data strategy, because having a strong strategy for data is one of the things you brought up when we were talking about all the things that are most important to you as a CIO. And one of the things you said about it was the data-driven companies are highly effective, and the ones who harness the power of data are more likely to grow their business. So tell me about your approach to that whole subject and the kind of things that you're working on that will make Rent-A-Center even more data-driven than it is already.
Oh, absolutely. We're very basic. We're very passionate about data as well.
Mm-hmm.
First off, protecting it one. So I'll keep throwing security at the front of all these conversations, but also, knowing our customers better. Yeah, we want to be able to provide experiences where they are, of course, but we also want to know them more and be able to put the best information in front of them as far as products they're interested in, and basically the whole customer journey, right? So our customer data platform work is a big activity for us right now, and also cleaning up some of the data attributes that we have, from being in business as long as we have. That's huge as well. But what it really boils down to is us challenging and evolving our data strategy so we can really get to a data-driven decisioning at Rent-A-Center. We're doing it now. We can do it better tomorrow through
Mm-hmm.
an even stronger data strategy. I mean, we have a good strategy now. It's one of the strongest leaders I have on my leadership team is working on it now, and I'm so excited about where he's taking us.
Excellent. Okay, we have some questions from our audience that is tapping in and paying attention. Here's one about how you might make the shift from heading IT as a CIO to become a chief digital officer or even a chief technology officer. Do you see those as totally different career paths?
That's
interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. That is a great question. I do and I don't.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about the leap to a chief digital officer, I've seen a few do it. Some do it well. Some probably not do it so well. One in particular person I'm thinking of has done an amazing job and is evolutionizing the healthcare industry as a part of her new role.
Mm-hmm.
It's a couple years old now, but
Mm-hmm.
It's so fresh and exciting. Every time I turn on LinkedIn, this individual's just there doing some amazing things for the healthcare industry. And I think about just how there's a tight intermingling of the business functions and the IT, and that's kind of the holy grail for me. So I think if I'm thinking about my journey to get to that chief digital officer role, I feel like I'm on the right path because that's what we've been talking about this entire time, right?
Sure.
Is
the customer
how do we
focus.
embed how do we embed ourselves into the business and be stronger business partners? So you're looking at more of that business view instead of just I need to enable this from a technology perspective. We need to have that end-to-end picture. When I think of the chief digital officer role, it's about that digital transformation that's going to enable the business and having functions that
Mm-hmm.
work inside the business reporting up to that role. So a long-winded answer to say that I definitely could see an evolution more on tying IT and business together.
Yes. Well, and as it happens, I think you might have been talking about our mutual friend, Angela Yoakum, who is the Chief Digital Officer at Novant Health. And she sent in a question for you and I know she's a former boss, so I think you have to rise to this occasion. Could you talk a little bit more about how you're building flexible products and services for the very fluid retail business? It's a good question. It's the kind we've come to expect from Angela. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it comes back to what we were talking about earlier about the business development roles. We've done a really good job of taking the complexity out of IT and again putting the power in the hands of the business. But there are times where IT needs to respond, and we obviously have through that simplification, we are able to put those flexible architecture on the ground that allow us to move faster. Think about just the world that we've all come from, where it's all about big metal boxes, PC power and cooling, and all those things that we hate today. So we've done a really good job over the last year as well of simplifying those architectures, moving as much as we can to the cloud, and moving as much as we can to platforms as a service, and really being able to respond really quickly as part of that.
Mm-hmm.
We're a heavy containerized shop, so you think about the self-healing properties that come alongside of that as well. So we're able to respond better from an operations perspective. We're automating as much as we can, so we can build out environments and be very flexible on how we demo some of these environments as well, and how we can experiment quite a bit with these with different technologies, so we can not just throw things out there and hope we get the right experience. We're going to really drive towards that experience with experimentation in that flexible world.
Great. Well, and the another area that I often end up talking with CIOs today is about a shift in the thinking away from project-based thinking to more products, like product teams, and thinking about products and capabilities rather than projects and deliverables. And I know the projects and the deliverables have to be underneath it all, but it seems like the container language around it is really changing. You said you didn't do any big reorging or restructuring over the last year, but are you set up to do that now, to take more of a product focus?
I love the word product, by the way. When we talk internally, it's all about products and services. So when I think about a product, I think about our our two business lines.
Yeah.
So being our traditional Rent-A-Center brand, and then our preferred lease brand, and those are our products. And we've done a really good job of being very aligned on the roadmap side of things and what it is to evolve those products. That's what you really need to hone in on is making sure that we're all aligned and on the same path from a roadmap perspective. So IT has had to get very focused in that delivering, get very focused on how do we help build that roadmap with the business. So do we, I don't necessarily like big meetings or anything of that nature, but steering committees and things of that nature are very important.
Yes.
If we're going to drive experiences, we need to be aligned on it, business operations, IT development, et cetera, so it's so we have made some subtle changes there to make sure that we have the right level of scalability and the right level of focus to respond to those products, if you will.
Okay, great. I've got another question I'm going to throw at you from our live audience here. It's a question about, it seems like your business model requires Rent-A-Center to interact with a network of suppliers to procure and direct ship to customers. Are you able to seamlessly integrate with most of your suppliers?
I'm going to happily say yes.
Oh, that's good. And then the question goes on, how does RAC handle challenges of integration with smaller suppliers who may not be as technologically advanced as you are?
Oh, that is a really good question.
It is a good question. Yes, it is. Thank you. That was from Rajesh Chetty. Thanks for that one.
Yeah, thank you for that question. There's a couple different ways. We've done things where we've had them come through some of our existing integrations with bigger partners, so kind of a pass through model. And then there's other times where we've gone to and matured, some of those smaller partners, so we can integrate, whether it be through, some kind of email ingestion or, generally we like to work through a services layer of some kind. And I come from a heavy integration background, primarily at BDP International. And so there's a million different ways you can spin that one. I mean, I just think about the days in logistics at BDP, and that's exactly what it was. It's small mom and pop shops doing the final mile on whatever that shipment may be. And they want to hand you a piece of paper. So,
right. Or they want to fax you something.
Exactly. So it's a difficult question to answer, but for us, we've handled it through relationships with our greater partners, and maturing their practices, working right alongside with them.
Okay. Great. Well, I will give you a break from the live questions and circle back to something that we got talking about, kind of a few more specifics on some of the key projects you have underway. You mentioned earlier that drive into the experience and the personalization and putting you closer to the customer on every level, and that you've done a lot of work on defining the customer journey. Talk a little bit about how that came together and what were any of the surprises you discovered in that?
I don't want to claim, that we have defined the customer journey, because
no. I know you worked with the business and with marketing and everything. That's okay. We're not letting you take all the credit.
Well, I would love to, because there's wonderful work there, but it was primarily done with our entire leadership team. So from a technology perspective, one of the things that we're building out now, and we've been experimenting with this. I don't want you to think that we're just thinking about it. Is how do we get better at identifying the touch points inside of that customer journey with the technologies we have inside the store? I mean, we talked a little bit about online and how we're using, the data that comes from those experiences to really figure out, how the journey should be and respond to them as they're shopping online or via mobile. But also in the stores where how are we measuring, radios off Wi-Fi, how are we seeing pass through traffic when they're walking by the store, and how do we bring that traffic in? How do we respond to them differently when they're in front of the video wall? They've been hanging out by the Xboxes for, 30 minutes. They're looking at all these games, but when they walk over to the TV, we can, and again, this is not implemented in all our stores, but this is an exciting thing to think about because we've been experimenting with it, changing all the screens in the stores to then start talking about Xboxes and bringing those advertisements in there, and also personalization at the point of sale. How are we using computer vision and all that data that I just described to really personalize that experience at the POS? These things are highly experimental at this point. I do not want to paint a picture that this is what we're doing inside of our stores yet, but they're really powerful.
Well, and it's good to be thinking about it and playing around with that sort of thing, because I think that's where innovation springs from, right? You have to try things, you have to fail forward quickly.
Absolutely. And it's really it's really neat to think about. You're getting a lot of that from metadata. You're not necessarily fully identifying a customer or taking pictures of customers,
Right,
through
right.
through like computer vision methodologies. You're using that metadata of that image to really identify that customer. So it's a bit anonymous in some regard, and you're still getting the great benefit when they come to the register. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too. It's such a human thing where we want to be known, but not to an extent where it feels creepy. So
Absolutely. That's why I mentioned it.
I know. It's just, well, and let me see, I've got another really good question, actually, well, more related to talent and how you keep talent excited here. And this is from a Deputy CIO, Andy Santorcroce. Now that you have the A-team on the ground at RAC, what are you doing to keep them excited about their future with you and therefore their passion for customer service? So... Excellent question, Andy. Thank you.
I'm gonna have to thank him for that question later.
Yeah.
No, it's a great question, and when I think about what we do here, it's a lot of things. One of the things I'm very proud of is the culture of inclusion we have across the floor.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about everything that you've done. It's everything that we've done, and we work so closely together. There's no egos, and that's true throughout the entire Rent-A-Center headquarters and at the store level. We're all in this together. So there's desire to have that. There's folks that have left here and they said, "Wow, I didn't know how good I had it," or I didn't know that anywhere else was going to be different than I saw at Rent-A-Center. And frankly, that's why I signed on in 2017, is because I was able to get a view into this before I signed on, and I was so excited about the way this place operates that I had to be a part of it. So there's a bit of that, and there's also empowerment. I'm a firm believer that if you give folks the tools and the opportunities to do their job and do it well, and allow them to drive it themselves, you're gonna get great rewards from that, and they're gonna be excited about being here. They're gonna be excited about what they've accomplished. And they know they're going to get another opportunity outside of that to do something great again. I mean, if you think about, granted, you don't have a view into this, but when I think about all the exciting things that have happened just from folks wanting to do it, and we're giving them the opportunity, we've got some pretty amazing experiences out there internally and externally. So it's that's how we're doing it. And we're also, we also work with different programs in the area to get talent in from a mentorship perspective, from a
you have mentorship programs, that sort of thing, internships.
Yeah, so the internship piece, we basically go through that once a year, more towards the end of school season. But the mentorship piece is a bit unofficial inside of IT. We do a lot of mentorship inside of here, but we also try to partner with universities where we can to pull talent there as well. And that's an area that I think we need to invest more in 20. When earlier in my career here at Rent-A-Center, we had a stronger focus on that, and I'd love to get back to that because it's such an important market to tap into. Yeah. Folks coming out of college, or these kids coming out of college, are so excited to show what they've learned and really make their mark. So I love seeing that.
Well, and you should talk up just the notion that if you can make it in a retail environment on the IT side, you could pretty much go anywhere. It's a very, it's such a razor-thin margin business for everybody in retail. Every time I talk to one of my retail CIOs friends, somebody whose store I shop at, I'll be saying, "Oh, I love it. There's all these big discounts." And this particular CIO said, "Yeah, well, that's actually not great on our side." And I thought, but as a consumer, I was really enjoying it. One of the things that we talked about when we were talking about the IT staff and how you have it structured, standard. You said you're traditional in some sense, that you've got teams that are maintaining operational infrastructure and data center activities and that sort, but that IT as a whole operates in a more agile development mindset. And you don't mean that everything is done in an agile development, a Scrum approach sort of thing, but talk about the agile development mindset and maybe how that has been changing or changed over the last year as you took over as CIO.
Yeah, I mean, what I meant by that when we were talking about it before, it's not agile in the traditional sense, of course, but it's that the ability to move quickly and to stand up technologies or in integrated technology, fairly quickly and be able to tear it down. And that's, kind of goes back to where we were talking about modernizing and simplifying our architecture so we can do that. One of the other things, that we're trying to do a lot more of is automation. I mentioned, the very mature DevOps shop that we have. I would never say automate ourselves out of, mundane tasks, but that's kind of what we're doing.
Really?
We're automating, all the things that are just, the things you would normally do as part of a standard IT shop. So we can focus more on those value add items, those very quick wins from an agile type methodology perspective on the delivery side.
Yeah.
There's also a topic that I'd love to dig more into, and I'm not an expert yet,
right.
But this concept of AI ops, I'm not sure if you've heard of it yet, but it's incredible. So you take AI and machine learning, and you couple that into a platform, and you're automating all your IT operations on the back end. So you're
freeing up time.
You're freeing up time.
Yeah.
You're getting to the value add. You're delivering a better service to your consumers. You're building self-healing infrastructures, and that's an incredible place to be.
Yeah.
Could you imagine you don't get a call in the middle of the night? Well, it's that's a fantastic thing for myself and my team. I'm committed to driving that direction in 20. We serve franchisees. We want to deliver good service to them. We have customers standing in front of our counters in our corporate stores as well.
Yeah.
We've got folks that are online transacting. They should not see a blip in service. We should have a fully automated service no matter what time of the day and night it is, and be able to self-heal those environments as they see trouble, because it's impossible to have a bright, shiny, rosy colored system that never has any issues. It's just it's things happen. So we're doing everything we can to prevent the things that just happen through automation and AI ops.
Well, AI, there certainly has been a lot of buzz around AI. It's one of those overnight success technologies that's been a quarter century in the building. I mean, I can remember we probably called it different things 20 years ago at Computer World. It was probably called machine learning or something else. But AI ops is a little bit new to me. Is that just a whole subcategory of AI? And I know you're experimenting with some real things, and you can't name names or talk about those things that you're doing now at Rent-A-Center. But how far along is that journey? Are you finding a lot of really helpful, mature enough products to get things done with? What can you tell us about that?
On the automation side, we're going down a few different avenues with that. So, traditional automation that you see inside of different platforms that you own today. A lot of automation built in from an environment perspective. Say in the DevOps world. I keep saying DevOps. I feel like a broken record, but that's where a lot of our automation lives. And so there's that sense of automation. There's also the RPA side of things, where we're working directly with the business and we're helping them automate, tasks that are a bit mundane to them as well, that aren't necessarily system driven. So there's that piece, but the AI ops piece is about taking all that information in, and then building some out of the box automations, but also scripting a lot of those automations as well, if you will. So you're trying to tell it what to do, and it continues to learn. The machine learning aspect. I don't want to undersell that as well. It continues to learn about how to heal itself better, or variety of different things there. It's I don't know a whole lot about the AI ops piece yet, but I know I'm very passionate about getting it right.
Yes.
So we're very very early into that journey. We've looked at a few tools that look really promising. We've had a little bit of experimentation with one of them, and seeing some great results so far.
Yeah.
Happy to come back and talk to you at length about that one if you'd like.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, I know that you'll keep looking and keep researching. When you were at the Big Retail Federation show in New York, did you see a lot more of that, or are you kind of talking from more of a cutting edge where you are?
I'd like to say we're talking a little more about cutting edge. I did meet another AI partner out there.
Oh, good.
Well, another AI platform through one of our existing partners. So the journey was pretty easy with that one, and then we're having great conversations with them.
That's good.
But the NRF was mainly about the in-store experience and what we're doing to enable retail more so than the operational side of IT in the back. And I just stumbled across that one by luck.
Okay. Well, that's why it's great to get out in the world and not try to do everything, to get a little face-to-face time with all these, because you discover things that you really weren't even looking for. I have another question from our audience here. What technology or process have you put in place that you think has returned the greatest value or is the greatest value enabler so far? And it doesn't have to be your whole career. It can just be the last year. But that is a technology or a process. It may be the automation and the operation stuff that's returning the greatest value or is the greatest value enabler.
That's a tough one. So I'm going to pick one side of it, and I'm going to pick the business development side that I've been talking about. And I have to say it's probably been Salesforce.
Okay.
You could put your whole business on Salesforce if you really wanted to. That's not the direction that we're going, but you could if you wanted to, depending on the size of your organization. But there's just so much there, and the leadership that we're working with has been fantastic. They really want to understand our journey, and they really want to understand how we would like to utilize the platform, all the way from the customer to our internal team. So there's been a lot of success there with the things we have implemented.
Okay.
A great deal of flexibility, and it goes to the business-driven development side. We've as we went through, our purchasing portal work. We've had some great partnerships with the business there, and they did a lot of the work. We put in a fleet management environment that was done by the business. So with IT's help, of course. But there's that one that really has been a win for us in 19. And we had Salesforce a bit before, but I don't think we took the time to really utilize it the way we should have. And now that we have, we're seeing some great benefits.
That's good. That's good. Another question for you from our audience: before you implement a new technology for your end users, what are some of the top concerns to consider before you roll it out?
Great question.
I know that the thing about having this live conversation is that a lot of the questions are probably as good or better as anything I can think up to ask you. So I am very grateful to have the audience participation here.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that we do, and this is going to sound really boring, but we put a lot of emphasis in the user acceptance testing.
Okay.
So we really.
Why is that? Why is that boring? Does that sound obvious or something? Is that?
It does sound a bit obvious, but I think it's a step that's missed, or not missed, or skipped for speed to market, and I think that's a huge mistake.
Okay.
I think when you're working on an experience that's critical for your customer or even your coworker inside of your organization, it's got to be right. Nothing is worse than a frustrated individual that isn't getting the benefit out of all the hard work you put into a system or a solution.
Yeah.
So we invest heavily in QA, so making sure it's right before it gets user acceptance and testing, and then also holding the business accountable and the folks that develop the system accountable to get through the user acceptance testing.
Good.
You're gonna learn all your lessons there, and I can't think of a worse thing other than something rolling out to the masses, in our stores or online, and it being a bad experience. I never want to be in the other end of that. I want to make sure that we're putting the right products out there and they are incredible for our consumers.
Well, and that is setting a really high bar for yourselves. I mean, it doesn't allow you to have any failures on things that you then pull back. And as you're talking about that, I was thinking about a friend of mine who's in a CIO of a big retail, a chain of restaurants, and it was very, very, very buzzwordy and very popular for a while to have those like a way to order right on the table. You could have the iPad right in front of you and games on there for the kids and everything. And we see them in restaurant locations at airports. And so, but
Right.
this was a slightly higher end. This was more of a dining experience type restaurant. And they experimented, they rolled out, they thought there was all this great research on it and people seemed to love it. And they rolled out to, a dozen restaurants. They had several hundred in the chain. And they discovered very quickly that the people were looking for a different dining experience. And having, kind of a grubby, like tablet on the table with everybody poking on it, and they wanted more personalized experience. And it was really valuable to them to discover that. But all the research they'd done and even the surveys they'd done, it seemed like it was going to be a great idea, but it was the wrong idea for their particular customers. And
It's really funny.
yeah,
It's really funny you mentioned that,
yeah.
because that's something that as soon as we go into a couple restaurants to have those, I pick them right up and I set them either on the very edge of the table where they're kind of out of the way, or I put them on the table next to me just because that's not the experience that I expect
There.
on the restaurant. I want
There you
that
go.
personal experience. Well, I want to talk to my server and
Yep.
have that interaction.
Well, with all the emphasis you have on interaction at Rent-A-Center, you've probably gotten a lot fussier about that. You're kind of like,
Oh, most
I
definitely.
want my customer experience. All right, let's wrap up in the last few minutes here talking about some of your leadership lessons. You have spent a lot of time in management and upper management and executive positions, both in security work. That firm you worked for at one point was very much about innovation and delivering, what was it, experience as a service?
Experimentation as a service.
Experimentation as a service. So along the way, and then of course you've had your first year as a CIO. So when you think about how you balance all the competing demands on your role and the leadership lessons that you have learned, tell us all about those in just the remaining few minutes that we have. Share some of your thinking on that with your fellow CIOs out there.
I mean, a simple one, of course, is can't do it all yourself, for sure. So having the right talent, on your leadership team and putting them in situations that may not be in their comfort zone, but allows them to grow and build their own capabilities, I think is extremely important, and helping them along the way, of course. So that's and I've be honest, I've always been that type of leader. It's kind of inherent to who I am, and I love to see people succeed. And I think a little bit of I don't want to call it a step back approach, but an approach where, as a CIO, I don't need to be in every conversation.
You shouldn't be. Actually, you're a major micromanager if you are.
Exactly. So one of my biggest lessons is how powerful it is to just empower and drive that next level down, and then also make that infectious across their leadership team. And I firmly believe that's why we are such a strong, tight technology team here at Rent-A-Center. We think about that at all levels of management. So it's really showing and giving folks opportunities to grow and be proud of what they're doing. So that's something that I think is critical for any CIO and any strong technology leader.
Great. Well, that sounds like, and I know that you've done a lot of additional executive education around leadership and that sort of thing. You've always struck me, Mike, as one of those kind of lifelong learners.
I like to think that I am, for sure, and absolutely. Outside influence, career coaching, all those things are vitally important. Those were opportunities that were extended to me by previous leadership that I've worked for. I've cherished those interactions, and I definitely think they're necessary. You're never going to get all the lessons or the tools you need inside of the four walls of the organization you're in. You got to branch out. And also the networking side of things, don't underestimate how powerful that is as well. And I like to think I'm a good networker, but I could do a lot more. Sometimes I say that I'm too busy to go out to a certain event or what have you. That is the wrong thing to do. So to everyone listening, I would say networking. I mean, when I have conversations like this with folks like yourself, if I'm on a panel or if I'm just sitting at the bar talking to someone about, what challenges they have.
Yes.
Those are valuable lessons. And I would encourage technology leaders at all levels to network as much as they possibly can as well.
Great. Well, and I remember meeting you some years ago at one of our CIO events, and you were one of those people that came up afterwards and you had comments about some of the speakers you had just seen, and you made it known that you were open for calls, that you'd be willing to talk about the work you're doing, maybe be on a panel. I mean, you were one of those people that put yourself out there. And I do think that pays off greatly in the long run. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We got lots of great questions from our audience. They were clearly following your every word, and I'm sure that you'll get a whole bunch more LinkedIn requests after this. And knowing you and the way you're so friendly, I'm sure that you'll be connecting with lots more people and adding them to your network. So thanks for joining us here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. And thank you to our audience. If you joined us late, do not despair. You can watch the full episode later today on CIO.com or on YouTube, or listen to the audio podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I encourage you to join me for our next episode, which will be streamed live onto LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube next Wednesday, February 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern. I'll be joined by Jason Nairn, who is the Chief Information Officer at Concordia University in Portland, Oregon, and we're going to talk about all of the challenges in higher education and also dive into a lot of the really interesting security executive background that Jason also has. So please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is called IDG Tech Talk. You can find all the previous episodes of CIO Leadership Live there. And we really appreciate you being with us today and hope you'll join us next time. Take care.